If a man suspected his wife had committed adultery, but there were not any male witnesses, the husband was to bring her in a grain offering of 2 quarts of barley flour without any olive oil poured or any frankincense put on it. The priest would bring her forward and place her in front of the tabernacle, or later the temple. While she waited, the priest was to mix holy water and some of the dust from the floor of the tabernacle, or later the temple, into a clay pot. With her hair unbound, the wife was supposed to hold the grain offering in her hands. Near her, the priest would stand with the jar holding the water of embitterment and cursing. The priest would then declare the following statement to her in the presence of her husband. The priest was to say to her, "If no man has gone to bed with you, if you have not gone astray to make yourself ritualistically impure while under your husband's authority, then be free from this water of embitterment and cursing. But if you have in fact gone astray while under your husband's authority and become ritualistically impure, because some man other than your husband has gone to bed with you, may Adonai make you an object of cursing and condemnation among your people by making your private parts shrivel and your abdomen swell up. May this water that causes the curse go into your inner parts and make your abdomen swell and your private parts shrivel up." Once the wife said, "Amen, amen," the priest was to write these curses on a scroll and wash them off into the water of embitterment. Taking the grain offering from her hands, the priest would wave it. A handful of it would be burned on the altar of burnt offering. The sota, meaning a woman accused of adultery, was then to drink this dirty, tainted water. If her reproductive system did not burst, she would be innocent of the accusation. Student, please recall the life of the womanizing, self-defiling Judahite man named Samson. According to Judges 13:5, he had been consecrated as a Nazir or a Nazirite from birth. The Nazirite oath, which, unless by a divine call, was a voluntary vow, dictated an extremely sacred code for the oath taker. The one who voluntarily took the oath of a Nazirite was liable to the respective restrictions for a month, which was 29 or 30 days, a year, 253 to 255 days, or for life. During his time as a Nazir or Nazirite, he was to abstain from consuming wine, wine mixtures, wine vinegar, fresh grapes, grape seeds, grape skins, or raisins. He was also to avoid entering or being in a house where a dead body was found. By extension, he was not to touch any ritualistically impure thing or animal, regardless of whether it was dead or alive. Also, he had to avoid touching a corpse or entering a cemetery. However, he was to grow his hair out and never cut it until his time was over, unless he had dedicated himself for his lifetime. The unfortunate thing about death is that it can come abruptly. Student, reflect on the possibility that the person to your left, right, in front of you, or behind you can suddenly die right where they currently stand, sit, or lie. In the case of the Nazirite, this possible reality was no different. If someone did unfortunately die suddenly in the area where the Nazirite was, he was to live in isolation for 7 days. On the 7th day, he was to shave his head. The following day, he was to bring a guilt offering of a lamb, a sin offering of a pigeon or turtle dove, and a burnt offering of a pigeon or turtle dove to the priest. The days prior to his defilement would then be discounted, as he had become defiled to no fault of his own. After a person who had taken the vow of the Nazarite had fulfilled his period of consecration, he had to bring a lamb yearling without defect as a burnt offering, a ewe lamb yearling without defect as a sin offering, a ram without defect as a peace offering. These offerings were to be accompanied by grain offerings and drink offerings. In addition, he was to bring a basket of unleavened bread, loaves made of fine flour mixed with olive oil, and unleavened wafers spread with olive oil. The Nazir or Nazarite would then shave his consecrated head at the entrance of the courtyard of the tabernacle, or the court of men when the temple stood. The priest would take the removed hair and put it on the fire under the sacrifice of peace offerings. Before this, the Nazarite was relinquished. Following this, the Nazarite was relinquished from his oath and could drink wine, eat grapes, and cut his hair once it grows back. Aaron and his sons were charged with blessing the people daily with the following prayer, so they could put the name on the Israelites. Yevcha Adonai v'yismerecha, Ya'eh Adonai pana elecha v'chunecha, Yisa Adonai pana elecha v'yasim laka shalom. Numbers 5:11 through 6:27. Amid the 1118 BC invasion of Judah by the Philistines, an unusual event occurred at Zorah, modern day Sarah, Israel. Mona, a Dananite, was married to a barren woman. One day a messenger said to her, "Listen, it is true that you are barren and you haven't had a child, but you will conceive and give birth to a son. Now therefore be careful not to drink any wine or other intoxicating liquor, and do not eat anything unclean. For indeed you will conceive and give birth to a son. No razor is to touch his head, because the child will be a Nazarite to Adonai from the womb. Moreover, he will begin to rescue Israel from the power of the Philistines." The woman came and told her husband, "A man of Adonai came to me. The appearance of his face was fearsome, like that of the angel of Adonai. I did not ask him where he came from, and he did not tell me his name. However, he said to me, 'Listen, you will conceive and give birth to a son. Now therefore do not drink any wine or other intoxicating liquor, and do not eat anything unclean, because the child will be a Nazarite to Adonai from the womb until the day he died.'" Then Manoah prayed, "Please, Adonai, let the man of God you sent come again to us and teach us how to raise the child who will be born." A few days later, while sitting in the field, the messenger or angel returned to the woman, who was not accompanied by her husband Manoah. The woman hurried and ran to tell her husband, "Here, that man, the one who came to me the other day, he's come again." Manoah followed his wife and went to the man and said to him, "Are you the man who spoke to my wife?" He answered, "I am." Manoah asked, "Now, when what you said comes true, what are the guidelines for raising the child? What should be done for him?" The messenger said to Manoah, "Your wife is to do everything I told her. She should not eat anything that comes from a grapevine. She should not drink wine or any intoxicating liquor, and she should not eat anything unclean. She should do everything I ordered her to do. Manoah said to the angel, "Please stay with us a bit longer so that we can cook a young goat for you." The angel replied, "Even if I stay, I will not eat your food. If you prepare a burnt offering, you must offer it to Adonai." Manoah said to the messenger, "Tell us your name so that when your words come true, we can honor you." "Why are you asking about my name? It is wonderful," is the response that was heard. Manoah took the kid and the grain offering and offered them on the rock to the Eternal One. The flame went up toward the sky from the altar, emitting thick smoke. As Manoah and his wife looked on, the messenger ascended in the flame. When Manoah and his wife saw it, they fell to the ground on their faces. It was at that moment that Manoah realized that the man, the messenger, was actually an angel. The Hebrew term for angel is malach, meaning messenger. Manoah said to his wife, "We will surely die because we have seen Adonai." This was a usual sentiment, as it was believed at that time that if you saw an angelic representative of the eternal king, it was the equivalent to seeing him himself. For instance, you can look at Exodus 33:20 and see that this is not just a localized sentiment. Manoah's wife, though, stated a logical statement that relaxed her husband. If Adonai had wanted to kill us, he would not have accepted a burnt offering and a grain offering from us, nor would he have shown us all these things or spoken to us this way. The woman gave birth to a son and named him Samson. As the child grew, he was divinely blessed. While Samson was a child or teenager at Manah Dan, meaning Camp of Dan, the Spirit of the Eternal King began to stir him. Manah Dan was the place where the 600 Danites camped near the city, where one day the ark would rest after having left Philistina, after it was captured by the Philistines. Judges 13:2-25. Bishop James of Jerusalem, who was the brother of Christ, and all the presbytery of Jerusalem were greeted by Paul and told in detail about the ministry and the masses of believing Gentiles. However, whereas all the metropolises that Paul had taught in were mostly Greek or mostly Gentile, the metropolis of Jerusalem was still mostly Jewish. There had been rumors that Paul had forsaken Moses due to coexisting with Gentiles in their homes and taught that it was wrong to circumcise their sons or observe the Torah. Due to such a controversial issue, though the rumors were false, the presbytery had devised a plan to resolve the controversy. Note, it is hard to minister to people when you do not interact or coexist with them. How could Paul minister to the Gentiles if he did not physically live among them? 4 Messianic Jews took a vow, likely the same vow that Paul had taken, the Nazirite vow. He was to pay for their heads being shaved and, after purification, observe the customs in Torah, without the legalistic observation that the Orthodox Jewish leaders advocated. As for the Christians, they had sent a letter similar to the Edict of the Council of Jerusalem to them. The following day, Paul and the men with him began the week-long purification process. On the day of their purification, each man was to bring a burnt offering of a male lamb in its first year without defect, a sin offering of a female lamb, a peace offering of a ram, grain offerings and drink offerings, and a basket of matzah loaves made of fine flour mixed with olive oil, and unleavened wafers spread with olive oil. After the Nazarite shaved their heads and burned their hair that they had cut off in the fire under the peace offerings, the priest would boil the ram. He then took the ram's shoulder, one loaf of matzah from the basket, and one unleavened wafer. The priest then placed them in the hands of the Nazarite, and then possibly took them back as a wave offering, unless they did the wave offering together. While the shoulder was set aside for the priest to eat, the breast was waved and the thigh elevated. These were for the Nazarite to eat. This concluded the oath, and the Nazarite was free to eat and drink what he or she could not while in his or her time of consecration. During the week, Paul and Trophimus were observed to be friends, even like brothers. As they seemed to be close friends, such an interaction was not looked kindly on by certain men in the city. In their minds, Paul may have defiled the whole temple by bringing Trophimus into the temple proper, or the court of the Gentiles. Close to the end of the week, Paul was seized by a group of Orthodox Jews. The spokesman shouted, "This is the man who is teaching everyone or everywhere against our people, our law, and this place. More than that, he has actually brought Greeks into the temple and has defiled this holy place." As they attempted to execute him and were beating him, the tribune Claudius Laius and several soldiers from Antonia fortress delivered Paul out of their hands. Laius arrested him in 2 chains and took him back to the fortress. Acts 21:17 through 32.